Welcome to the Know Your Fundamentals podcast, the show designed to help professional moms like you empower your well-being, strengthen family bonds, and excel in your career while thriving your way. I'm your host, Kelly Berthold, a fellow professional mom, licensed clinical social worker, wellness educator, advocate, and coach. And I created this podcast to provide a space where we can connect foundational principles of well-being with real-life, actionable insights that help us feel more connected to ourselves and others. If you're juggling life, family, and career while seeking balance and authentic connection, this podcast is for you. Each episode we'll hear from our neighbors, uncover the extraordinary in ordinary life, find patterns that help us recognize opportunities for well-being, and get practical, fundamental tips to thrive in your wellness, relationships, parenting, and professional life. You're the expert on you, and I'm here to help you thrive your way. I'm so glad that you're here. Let's jump in. So hi, welcome today to the Know Your Fundamentals podcast. Today we have Elizabeth Hay with us. Elizabeth has her MBA and is a director of the Happy Valley LaunchBox, as well as co-founder of TechKnowServ Corp and a passionate advocate for the connection between physical wellness and performance. So today in this episode, Elizabeth will dive into how physical wellness drives overall performance by training the body to build stamina, mental resilience, and the ability to accomplish big goals. With an MBA from Penn State, master's level yoga instructor and yoga therapist, and plant-based nutrition certified from Cornell, Elizabeth will share how fitness and nutrition can be powerful business strategies for high achievers and entrepreneurs. So welcome today, Elizabeth.
Thanks, Kelly. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So just kind of getting into it, but where is it that, right now with all these different backgrounds, this is a pretty diverse kind of set of skills and education. Where is it that you apply your passion and your interests into your work right now?
Yeah, it's super interesting. I think, one of the things that as I've gone along and worked with so many different entrepreneurs and studied statistics, we know that a lot of athletes actually end up being CEOs of companies. And I think there's a huge connection between the physical training of the body and the ability to perform in work and have some self-motivation and self-drive. And that's totally transferable into entrepreneurship where you're your own manager. And so I've used those skills my entire life to sort of help me drive forward and help train my body to build the stamina I need to continue to drive things forward in my family life and my work life and all of those different things.
Yeah. So let's catch up even on what is your family life and what are all the roles that you fill right now?
Yeah.
The things that you do day to day between business and community and family. What does that all look like for you?
Yeah. So, my full-time job is the Jack White Family Director of the Happy Valley LaunchBox powered by PNC Bank. That's the full title. But I'm the director of the LaunchBox where I help our teams come through it with early stage ideas and de-risk those ideas through coaching and accelerator programming. Also a co-working space here in downtown State College. And so I get to interact with entrepreneurs all day. Also an entrepreneur. So my husband and I started a business, 22 years ago now. TechKnowServ is a spinoff of that and a second business that we own. And I was just 24 when we started that business. So I sort of had to learn early how to balance and prioritize entrepreneurship at a really young age. And we also, we have 6 kids together. I have 5 teenagers right now and a 6-year-old, so that's a lot to balance at this time. I'm also the president of Wings here in Happy Valley, which is a women's entrepreneurship group, and I serve on a couple other boards for Center County in economic development. So doing a lot and balancing a lot, taking on a lot of different roles, and not all of it's perfect. There's definitely balls that are dropped left and right sometimes, but knowing that I have to, I didn't really have a choice to not keep things going, especially when I was raising 5 toddlers at the same time. I learned to build a lot of stamina, and a lot of that was by prioritizing exercise on a daily basis I found the more that I pushed my body to perform and the more I built that stamina physically, I was able to show up for my kids, and things at work weren't as hard and along those lines. So I was really able to blend those things together. But I also know that I'm a little bit of a cardio junkie. So I got into this headspace of knowing that I needed to also balance my mindfulness. So went through a yoga teacher certification 15 years ago. And I always thought yoga, like I just had a really hard time calming my mind. And I always thought yoga had to be this for people who are really quiet people and we're good at sitting still. But I learned that we do yoga to physically exhaust our bodies so that we can be quiet. And that's what I really needed. And so going down the rabbit hole of learning all the techniques of yoga and mindfulness from that perspective really helped me center myself along the line. So after that, I opened a yoga studio and ran a yoga studio for about 5 years. And we've since sold the yoga studio, and I still teach yoga locally, but I'm super passionate about yoga as well. So the blending of physical fitness and all these different roles has always been super important to me.
Yeah. So even like kind of like taking it back, I'm going to talk about like some of these concepts too, between like that balance between rigidity and chaos, and the balance between, we have to expose ourselves and we also have to rest. And where does that resiliency really come from? Through our experiences, trust falling over and over and over again to understand our capabilities. And that's where like I can drop all these balls and know that I'm capable of figuring it out instead of just getting stuck and ruminating about all these things that are dropping along the way. Right. So these are skill sets of mind, and we can build through exercise, and we can also build through different types of life experiences. Where is it that like when you were growing up, that whether it was modeled to you, maybe it was like a part of your environment, or maybe it was something like intrinsic that you could just kind of became aware within yourself? Where is it that all of this kind of started for you?
I'm not sure. I've always been a really physical person. I just always was. My sister and I are like night and day. She was like a bookworm and super quiet, and then I was always just a very physical person, very active. So sometimes we can look at like intelligence in different realms, right? And for me, like the mind body connection was very natural. For my sister, she was book smart and, doing all those things. And so I think that for me, it just came naturally to just move my body. And so I think that connection, I know now, like now that I'm older, I'm happiest when I'm moving. And so, and the endorphins and all those things. And so I started, when I said I'm a cardio junkie, well, because I'm thriving off those endorphins from the cardio. And so now I know the definition behind all of that. But I think when I was younger, I would feel those endorphins somehow through physical activity and make those connections in my brain. And so it became just a part of my life to make sure that I was moving and in incorporating that into my lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah. So sometimes it's like what came first, the chicken or the egg kind of a deal? Was it that you started building your own sense of like confidence in your physical competency, and that helped you feel more capable in the things that you did? Or was it that you were doing things, whether it was your academics or other interests, and then you would use that experience to then enhance your physical exercise? Do you see what I kind of mean there?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, I think I don't really know how to answer, right? I think they both sort of came at the same time. I was very competitive. So, winning and getting attention for winning probably helped to enhance that positive feedback.
So your temperament. So temperament was like, this is kind of my personality type to like want to approach things and then getting these endorphins in that approach and how it made my body feel, and then keep approaching the things that were like you're getting a positive response by, even like a visceral positive response, and you
Right.
kept approaching.
Absolutely. But, I mean, not to veer too far off the topic, because as I would increase my ability to my performance was always linked to physical activity. And so I was competing and I was winning, and then I was becoming, asked to lead the group. Then now you're the captain of the team, or you're seen as a leader in the school because you're getting recognized and those kind of things. And so, I do think that we look towards athletes or as leaders, and there's a tie there between being able to physically perform and being able to translate that into the work that we do. People start to look at those as leaders in different ways, and that's not always the case, but in my case, that's it helped to where I might not have been the smartest kid in the class. It helped me to gain leadership recognition and then move into different roles, throughout my youth, that helped me to gain confidence in different ways, to see that okay, it's not just, physical activity. Now I'm the vice president of the senior class and like all these different things. So I do think that it translated into helping to shape like, okay, I can do these things, build confidence and show that, you know, you can move forward in different ways too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I think, you know, when I am working with kids, a lot of it is like find the thing that you are right now passionate about and just keep approaching that and building the confidence in yourself. And this isn't just for kids, it's also for like anybody. Find a thing that you feel really, really passionate about, lean into that. And then the things that you learn through that process, you then can adapt in all these other areas of your life. It's not just this, right? We don't have to pigeonhole ourselves into, well, I'm Elizabeth and I'm only good at, I'll say track, since you didn't communicate what the sport was that maybe you were really good at. Or maybe you were really good at every sport, but I was really, really good at this sport. And now instead of just feeling like, well, once that sport ends in high school or the Olympics, if I even get that far, who am I beyond that? It's like, I'm all these capabilities. I'm all these other things that I've learned through the process. And where do I allow that to be sprinkled into all these other areas and allow for growth and also success and fulfillment? So where is it that you stopped being a competitive athlete?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point because now if you look at all the different things I'm involved in, it's just, I've always lived my life as like, okay, I want to do that. I'm going to do it. And so I want to, you know, explore that thing. And I think to your point, what you just said is, you know, you learn to sort of get good at this one thing and then you can transfer those same skill sets towards other things. So, you know, I think it was probably during motherhood, right? That having the baby and like all of a sudden, like, now you got to care for this other person and take care of this other person. And that was probably the point where like it was apparent to me that like, that wasn't, you know, just athlete, you know, now my physical stamina had to be getting up in the middle of the night. My first child was actually born with a major birth defect, which just totally took a lot out of me and taught me a lot about self-sacrifice. But I think the same skill sets that I had like applied to building stamina, and you just have to, you know, get up and face the things that are hard, right? And do the hard things. And I think some of that, I'm glad that I had those experiences when I was younger to help me through those times, right? And I continue to put myself in those positions to have those experiences. I don't want to run 10 miles. I don't want to run uphill, but I do it because I know that it's going to teach me something. And when I do it, I feel great afterwards. Nobody ever runs like afterwards, like, oh, that was really shitty. I wish I didn't do that. But it, you know, you do it because you know you're going to learn something from it.
Yeah, absolutely. So like being able to approach things that are uncomfortable and maybe even the unknown is difficult. And if we embrace the things that we do know and also like our prior life experience and remember that those can be assets in approaching the unknown and even getting over new hurdles and constantly growing. And that's the thing about yoga too. It's like you're never like an expert. You haven't ever just hit a pinnacle. And that's with a lot of different mindfulness practices. Beginner's mind is a thing of like thinking about that you're constantly learning and there's never a destination. So where is it that I can apply the information and this learning from where I have been to where I want to go? And having a curiosity about that to reinforce the journey and that it's not about that destination.
Totally.
It sounds like you're just really curious about what else is here. And you lean into that with your attitudes and your perceptions to get to wherever else that's going to go. Right.
Totally. I was just talking to my son yesterday. You know, it was wintertime and I wasn't outside running as much. And so like right now, I mean, I probably could run a marathon if I wanted, but it would be painful. So I'd like started training again. And he's like, well, what race are you doing? And I'm like, I'm not going to do a race. Like, I just want to be able to have that in my back pocket. Like, oh yeah, I can get out and run 26.2 miles at any time, right? I just want to have that in my toolbox, right? I want to know that I have that much stamina. I use a Apple Watch to track like my sleep and all these different things. And as soon as I start running again, I can see my heart rate going, variability going lower. I have like much better sleep and everything. And I just want to, like, I train just to have those experiences and I want to be good at that. Like, I want to be able to do that, not because I'm trying to accomplish some race or some goal. I just, like, for me, it's really important to be physically fit enough to like be able to maintain that level of fitness.
And doing it for yourself. It's not an external motivator. This is an internal motivator. And it's something that you keep coming back to.
Yeah. Yeah.
So bringing all of that kind of in, like these perceptions and these attitudes, and leaning into like, I understand what this pain is communicating to me, and not feeling like I'm being bogged down by it, but instead it's like a learning thing, right? These are attitudes of seeing what, dialectically, that things can coexist together. I can be in agonizing pain running this 18th mile, and I still want to go another mile. But if we end up having a lot of thought processes that are, I'm not capable, or I'm only doing this because I'm hoping that other people are going to like me or respect me, or I just want the financial reward, or I heard there's a lot of money in it, so that's the only reason why I'm going to do it, right? All these other reasons kind of jump into external motivators can, one, not be very fulfilling for obvious reasons because we're not listening to ourselves, right? And when we can also focus more on the things that are uniquely meaningful to us and trust ourselves to navigate these experiences, they tend to open up paths that become more fulfilling and more obvious. So for you, it sounds like you're living kind of your truth day to day, and you're just finding that balance in the world that you're living in. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think so totally. I mean, I've had enough experiences at this point with having 6 kids and having to know when I can say no, what things I have to say no to, and things I have to, that really mean the most to me, and what things are important. I always say, like, maybe they age me really quickly. But I think it's really important for me. Like, I know that, instead of, for example, I love cooking. And so instead of being like, it's a long day of work and I have to go home and cook dinner, like, I have embrace cooking as like an artistic outlet, and I go home and it's a reward to me instead of like, oh, it's another meal. And so it's reframing some of that too, and making it like, that's my me time. Me cooking a nice dinner for my family of whole foods is like a reward to me, rather than another mindset where, oh, poor me, I have to go cook for a big family and I've had a long day of work. And I think we can reframe those things so that it doesn't have to, you kind of said around the lines of, you're just doing this because you feel like you have to, or things like that. But I also think it's a reframing of the mindset and embracing those, the things that, and finding those small joys and the things, you can look at things a little bit differently.
Absolutely. So like that gratitude, again, these attitudes and gratitude, and attempting to like contribute, like, oh, I'm contributing this thing that I really enjoy and I'm sharing it with my family. So, and just one thing, we'll kind of like connect these pieces next into like the business and how you see this to be useful for other entrepreneurs or other like business, even in mindset of how people try to like incorporate these things into their businesses, not just like their individual work. But scientific thing to kind of just add in here is that all human beings have a negativity bias, which means that we automatically, whether you like it or not, will think more negatively than positively. So we are judgmental creatures. That's a part of your biology. You cannot just lobotomy that out of your DNA. Okay. So what matters here is that we practice being aware of what those automatic judgments may be, and those negative automatic thought processes as reactivity. We don't judge ourselves for having it. We accept it. And then we choose to direct our attention into a new path and a new habit by replacing that with something else, hopefully something more positive. So what Elizabeth is kind of communicating here is that if you find that you're having a difficult time, reframing some of these negative automatic thoughts and habits that are coming up for you, try not to just like blame yourself and say like, this is just me having a poor character, because that's not true. It's just a matter of building competence and building confidence through your own practice, and through practice and repetition, almost like if you were going to go for a walk every day and then were taking steps to go for a mile run. If you've never done that before, it's better to still do those walks because it teaches your body muscle memory. And over time, you are actually strengthening neural connections that'll lead to those habits. So a little bit can go a long way. So again, if you just want to try to adopt some of these mindsets, you can do it. And practice and repetition breed consistency. So the more you do it, the better you get. If you fall down, pick yourself back up and try again. So
yeah. And I ask you too, so I tend to find the more that I practice that, the less the negative thoughts creep in. So all of a sudden, I realized that like where it was really hard to go running every morning at 5 a.m. Now it's easier because I've been doing it, and now I don't even think negatively about it. Now I look forward to it. So as the more you practice it and you just sort of force yourself into these positions, and not to say the negative thoughts, that now you have negative thoughts about other things, right? And they're going to be there. But I think that you don't have to do this around everything, but the things that you really want to adopt new habits on, or that you want to change the way you're thinking of, if you just give it a chance and reframe it, that you can slowly totally change the way you think about it.
Absolutely. So sometimes I describe this as we have dirt trails that are positive neural connections in our brain that you barely can see through the weeds. And you're like, I think I'm going the right way, but I feel kind of lost. That's the insecurity of I'm trying to do something new and I just don't feel like I know what I'm doing, but here I am going and trying it anyway. The more you do that, we build then a road. And so we're trying to make that into a 2-lane highway, right? A positive neural networks and communication, and decreasing the negative 6-lane highway, right? The 405 in LA, and making that more of a 2 or 3-lane highway by not giving it as much time and construction money. So where are we investing, right, in our mental processes? That's where you're going to find those roads. So absolutely. Thanks for sharing that, Elizabeth. So how do you incorporate these mindsets and these perspectives in your work? And where do you find that other professionals do this as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's specifically in the work that I do, between working with students who are young and they have ideas and they're ambitious, they have big ideas, but sometimes it's teaching them that they, can't just focus on certain aspects of building an idea forward. There's some other things that they have to do that they don't want to do. Like a lot of them will come in with a technical idea and they're great programmers and they just want to code all day. And I'm like, well, if you can't market this business, nobody's going to know about it. And so you're going to have to learn marketing. And they're like, I don't want to go on social media. And I'm like, well, we're going to have to do hard things. And, I'm going to hold your hand through it, but we're going to have to talk about the hard things you have to do. And the same thing applies to adult entrepreneurs who come in. Community entrepreneurs are also able to use our services, and they're a lot easier to work with because they know what's on the line when they start businesses. So they're willing to do more, but we know specifically women entrepreneurs have historically been underrepresented in entrepreneurship. So a lot of times they are nervous to put themselves out there and tell people about what they're working on. And so it's sort of that same drive forward where we have to work on saying, can we do little things at a time to move this idea forward, and work on the skill sets of, even though you don't want to do this, we're going to have to do it if we want this business to be successful. So, I mean, what we run is a coaching program. And although it's not mental health coaching and physical coaching, a lot of the same concepts apply. It's
mindset. Mindset coaching to help them do and be present in doing the things that they don't feel confident in, and attempting to help support them in building that confidence through just pushing through the discomfort of those experiences.
Yeah. And if you look like, say you want to run a 5K, you come up with a plan and you start, ticking off those boxes like, okay, Monday I'm going to do this, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And we do the same thing with our entrepreneurs. What do you want to do? You want to make $500,000 in the next year. How are we going to get you there? What are the things you need to do? And then how do we break that down and check off those boxes? And so it's essentially the same thing. We're building out a plan, and you got to execute on certain things with stamina, with consistency, to meet your goals.
Yeah. And what do you find when you're working with entrepreneurs, including and maybe even especially women entrepreneurs, because that's mostly our audience here for this podcast? Where is it that you find that some of these learning curves happen, that, it's kind of like the anticipation is the worst part. It's like, oh, okay, I'm going up this hill. And like, it's usually within the first few weeks that hill is the biggest. And then where do you find that things start to level off, or like people start going, oh, okay, I'm feeling a little bit more confident now. I'm feeling a little bit more like I have that internal awareness that I can support myself if someone else isn't necessarily doing that for me. Can you share a little bit of that, about some of that journey that you've witnessed?
It's a struggle with female entrepreneurs, more significantly than their male counterparts. The women are wearing the hats at the home. I mean, they're still carrying on a lot of duties at home. And so working with female entrepreneurs and finding that consistency and ability to find the time to execute on the things that need to be done to move the business forward is much different than our experience with working with men. And I think they do get up this hill. They have beautiful, wonderful, great ideas. But when it comes to executing on the things with consistency that need to be executed on and finding the time to do those things, they're not prioritizing them as much as maybe their male counterparts. And so I've been working with women entrepreneurs for 7 years now, and I'm trying to figure out how to better coach to this part for women. Have a lot of work-life balance issues. They have a lot of different confidence issues. We just ran this women's conference that you were a part of in the fall, and we had all these boards out in the hallway asking, what are the things that they worry about that moving their ideas forward. There was a lot of lack of confidence. There was a lot of, I need people on my team. I need people in my court to help me move forward. To answer that question, when do we start to see that? Interestingly, we know that women who have a supportive partner in their house are much more likely to be successful. And so if you don't have someone that is your partner that is pushing you to move forward and encouraging you to move forward, it's a lot more difficult. So that's one main thing that we see that actually contributes to the success, which, it's great. But to my point of sort of this whole topic is how can we get beyond that? And, where we can start advocating for ourselves and making sure that hey, I'm going to put this time aside for this. And even though the family needs this, I'm going to make sure that we have the energy or, the resources to move these things forward. It's super important. We know just from research that women actually have more ideas and more creativity and should be moving things forward. They just don't have the resources and the access to the resources or the support system behind them to move that forward. And so we're not seeing as much action in that space as even though we've been working on this for years, we're still not seeing as much movement for women forward.
Yeah. So I think a part of some of the women's empowerment is helping individuals find one to attempt to give permission within themselves to seek external problem solving with family members and say, hey, this is what I would like. This is what I need. And just set that boundary, right? In those kind of conversations. And then the plan B is that doesn't go so well. Then what am I going to do? Because this is still important to me. So I can do both. I can attempt to focus on having productive conversations that can be effective for me to get that need met. And even the hurdle of recognizing that it can feel terrifying, even with the people that we're closest to talk about something that is so meaningful to us, because if they don't accept it, then what happens? So even approaching those fears in the most understanding of environments, sometimes those are first steps. How do I have this conversation? How do I just get over that fear? And where's my backup? Because this is still important to me. And how am I going to find time to make this work? It's kind of like, with doctors and medications. Medications are mostly first tested on who? Men, right? And then what we find generally internationally is that there's not just in the medical model, but women's needs are not the same as what has become the model of helping entrepreneurs or helping individuals with medical needs, or it doesn't matter what it is. There's a male model and women aren't necessarily prioritized in fitting in that model. And then what happens? It just doesn't work, right? So it is a little bit of having to reinvent the wheel because the wheel doesn't exist.
Right.
And you have, it's and as each individual woman, it's saying, it's not just me. There isn't a system for me. I have to accept there isn't a system for me. And then I have to figure out how to move through it that works for me and not just blame myself that it's not working. Right. And plug here, if you want my time management training to help you have some of these conversations and shift some of the mental load in your household, you can listen to that episode. That training's for free in my podcast. Awesome. So what are some of your thoughts with that, Elizabeth?
Yeah. I think too, just to tie it back to, physical fitness and how important that is, at least to me, and how it's helped me to make sure that I'm driving everything forward that I need to do. It's sort of like this daily prioritization of knowing that if I take care of myself, I can take care of all the other things. And then I'm also training my body to get stronger so that I have more mental resilience. When we're working out, we're putting our body under stress so that when stressful situations arise, they're not as stressful to me. And so I think if it's feeling overwhelming, if it's feeling like I just can't do it all, the tendency might be to just give up or shut down. And my advice is like, well, let's just train ourselves to like not get overwhelmed. And like, how can we put ourselves in physically demanding situations so that our body gets used to what it feels like to be under stress. And so that when these stressful situations arise, whether it be work-life balance, and so you want to get this thing off the ground, but your kids are crying, like you can deal with that a little bit better. I really feel like that those things sort of intersect. And I think as women, we can slowly get to training ourselves to handle some of those things better, to build the stamina so that we can do one more thing during the day. And not to say that we need more to do. If sometimes that's what we have to do if we're not getting the support that we need to do, and we really are passionate about getting things off the ground, or know that we're not doing what we need to do to move the thing forward.
Yeah. So effectively is doing what is needed for the situation that you're in, not the situation you wish you were in, not the situation that'd be more fair, not the situation that's more comfortable. I'm being effective because this is what's important. I'm prioritizing it. And I'm also knowing how overwhelming it is to like balance this with all my different needs. And nevertheless, this is what is. This is the reality. So what you're describing here too is expanding your window of tolerance. So where is it that my threshold with certain things becomes overwhelming and my body just taps out? And where is it that becomes underwhelming and it taps out? So we can expand our window of tolerance through things like tending to our basic needs, like physical exercise, nutrition, hydration, our sleep needs. So when you're doing things that are basic human needs and you're strengthening, right, your body, it will be a byproduct that you will feel more confident and capable and have an expanded window in other areas as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's one thing we didn't touch on either was nutrition and how that plays a part in it. But it's just this holistic approach to building your body to be this vessel that's going to serve you well. And so from whatever you put into it and how you take care of it, that translates into the work that you do, right? And the output that it gives you. And so I think paying attention to those things, and it took me a while to understand like, okay, I can't eat that. My body just doesn't go well with my body, and it makes me feel this way. And so I'm just not going to do that. And just being really mindful and tuning into those things so that I can perform at a level that I want to perform at, so that I can be present for my family. And so I can do the things like I want to experience all life has to offer. I want to do all the things. And sometimes people get sort of annoyed with me because I want to do all the things. I take my kids on adventures all the time. Like, one of mom's adventures, we're going to go hike this thing. And they're like, but like, I want to be that energetic mom that like has those experiences, and so, doing all those things to make sure that like I can do that. In this hot longevity topic right now, I'm all about it. Like, how can we have these bodies that last as long as possible? Because I don't want to be old and like frail, and I want to be an interactive grandmother to my many grandchildren I'm going to have, even though my husband says kids aren't going to have kids anymore when they're older. But what we do every day is going to translate how we do how our future is going to look for us. So I think it's really important to be paying attention to those things. And it's not going to be perfect. I eat junk food still, and I watch TV, and I binge watch Netflix sometimes. I mean, yes, those things happen, but in general, trying to pay attention to those things.
Yeah, but it's all about balance. So, and again, like that resiliency allows you to recognize that it's okay to have this and also do this. And you're also modeling through all your own behaviors and your interactions. Sometimes the over self-sacrifice, especially with mothers, is, well, I need to do this and be this for all these other people. And who are you? Who are you as a person beyond all that? And you are modeling to your children that when they become parents, they will lose themselves because they think that that is what they're supposed to be doing. So when we model healthy living and we model that we are unique individuals that have contributions that are not just serving other people, we make the world a better place, not a worse place, a better place, right? And our children are learning through osmosis through those experiences, and they will carry it forward. So if you want to make a better humanity, heed Elizabeth's advice and attempt to see where these things can be possible for you, to take steps that are uncomfortable, but like with muscle, you tear it down to build it up. So where are you balancing your life and your lifestyle, where you're tearing down just enough where you're not exhausting yourself or killing yourself, and where you're also giving yourself time to recover and strengthen, right? And homeostasis requires balance and trusting yourself that you can find that balance, and you have to be brave enough to try to figure it out. It's both.
Totally. Totally. Yeah. And, my level of homeostasis is going to look different than yours and different than, everybody else's, because I have a unique circumstance. You have a unique circumstance, and whatever is going on. So there's no need to compare to where it's at. It's just understanding, like, every day I'm here to get a little bit better than I was yesterday. And so what can I do today to move forward, whether it be physically, taking care of my body, or, pushing myself to learn something new or do something and build something, make something. It's just every day getting a little bit better at something.
And intrinsically for yourself. It's not for anybody else. It's for you. Yeah. So just kind of like I'm wrapping up some of these like concepts together. Where is it that when you think about balancing your lifestyle, so you're finding a way to balance a number of jobs, a number of these roles, and 6 kids in different, developmental stages of their own lives, and you're balancing your health and your well-being, and you have time to cook dinner. So like, how is it that you personally have found a balance in doing all these things? What have you prioritized?
Yeah. I think, the first thing I take care of in the morning is myself. So I get up early and I exercise. I have time. If I don't get that time in the morning to myself, I might be grumpy. So I make sure that it happens. I usually exercise in the morning, and that's really important to me that I exercise every day. I mean, it's every day, which is, I'm really fortunate. My husband is completely supportive of that for each other. We're like, if you didn't exercise today, don't come around me. So, but that's super important to me. But also, like, my family is super, super important to me. So if you've been around the LaunchBox, you might have seen my kids here. They're super involved in my work life. Before I worked here, we've always run our business. So they've always been involved in our businesses. So, we work a lot, and we're always working. We just got back from vacation and we're working during vacation. I'm not that type of person that like turns off my email or doesn't connect, but my kids are always around, they're always like involved and they're always a part of that. And I will, because I'm working on the weekends, I don't feel badly, taking, the 2-hour delay. And there's nothing wrong with like having pancakes on a 2-hour delay morning and putting that time aside, because I'll catch up on that stuff when I'm bored or on the weekend or whatever. So just making that space to make things work with the way it best fits me, not saying like putting hard stops on like, I don't answer emails on the weekends or I don't do this after 5. Just whenever it happens, it happens. And so if my kids need me in the middle of the day, I'll drop everything to be there for them. If work needs me, I'm going to drop everything to be there for work. So it's just finding that balance of allowing it all to happen feels comfortable for me. Now, I also grew up, my dad was an entrepreneur too. And that's just sort of how like, I've always seen things. My husband's father was an entrepreneur. We're entrepreneurs. So it's always just like, we put out fires when the fires happen, but our family is always just like there. And I don't think we're damaging the kids too much. I'll let you know. So far, they're all still alive and, doing good things. So yeah.
Yeah. So like integrating, right? So having the ability to like trust yourself to integrate all these things, and that if you knew that something wasn't going well in that moment, you would deal with it rather than feeling like you are not present in that moment to moment and you feel like things are not going well because you're blocking it or you're avoiding it or you're amplifying it. It's like, no, this is what it is and I'll deal with it and then I'll keep moving on. Right. So just taking things as they come and you're integrating life in ways that, again, intrinsically, are working for you.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, I get stressed out if I start my Monday with emails in my inbox. Like, I don't want to do that. I want to start Monday clean with a 0 inbox. So I will answer my emails on the weekends. That's just me. And I respect that other people have different ways that they run their work weeks. But what works for me is like that, things are sort of integrated and balanced so that Monday, if something happens and a kid gets sick, I'm not behind, right? I think for me, I get more anxiety about being behind or, not being able to have that time for me, like my week go how I want, where I can get my exercise in because I didn't answer all my emails on the weekends. For me, it's just getting the things done, checking off the list so that everything just flows, just flows.
Yeah.
Feng shui.
Feng shui. Yeah. And it's your own feng shui. Right. So totally. Just kind of like recapping before we get into our fundamentals, recognizing that through your life, you became aware that certain things you were really good at those things and you learned through putting yourself out there and building experience and exposing yourself to things that you were interested in. And you just kind of followed, you build confidence through building competence. But having to do that means you have to approach things that are uncomfortable. And that's how we get better. And through that life experience, then you were able to kind of like recognize how you could apply those things into other areas of life. And that has allowed you to thrive in your life, your personal life, like your life, your family, your work, your community relationships, and the things that you do, because you feel like you're capable and competent of taking things as they come. And when life throws you like curveballs, you'll handle it. You'll figure it out and you'll put out the fire and then you'll keep moving. So a lot of things that you learned is because you're willing to just take things as they're kind of coming and learning from that experience rather than getting hung up by it. It also doesn't sound like you spend a lot of time judging or blaming your character. It's just, this is the situation and how can I be effective through it and learn from it and keep learning in life, right? This beginner's mindset has been, again, it sounds like it's very present in your day to day. So how do you find that like this way of living for you has helped you feel more connected with other people? So we've talked a lot about how it makes you feel connected with yourself. How do you feel like you're sharing these unique capabilities, these unique interests, you're sharing them in ways that benefits, this contribution towards other people? And how do you find that is leading you to have meaningful living?
Yeah. Interesting question. I mean, I feel like I do it in my work. I don't come out and say, when you ask me a topic, like, I could have come on here and talk about entrepreneurship till the cows come home because that's what I do all day. But you asked me like, what's something that like you're passionate about? And so I don't talk about this, but the teams that I'm coaching, I'm here are sort of getting that side of my mindset without me outright saying like, go get on the treadmill. I have told them this before, but go get on the treadmill and run a miles and then like start to build up that stamina. I also bring it to my kids. They know that they have to sort of work really hard to achieve the things that they want to achieve. All our kids are athletes, and that's just something that was important to me and my husband, that they are physically staying active to stay out of trouble, number one, but also, just we are both physical people. So they all stay super busy in sports. So I think it's not something that I come out and say, if you've taken my yoga class, you've probably felt it in your body, because I teach a really hard practice. And I've said it to them, like I teach a really hard practice so that you can lay quiet and rest, because I feel like that clears your mind. So in different ways, I'm, bringing these things, but I'm not coming out and just saying like to the people that I'm interacting with on an everyday, like, I really believe that like, you just need to train your body a little bit harder, and then it'll translate into your work. Because it's a hard message to sort of put into like a nice, easy way to translate into the work that I do. However, when we're at the LaunchBox, we're always like, let's set some goals, and then like, I'll hold you accountable. And, then they come in for another meeting and that kind of thing. So, I am constantly working with other people and coaching them, but they just may not know what's driving the way I coach them.
Yeah, it's your authenticity though. You're being authentic in who you are, and you're sharing that again, like via osmosis, by being present with them and you living authentically in those moments and sharing that. You're not blocking any part of those things. It's just you're communicating with whatever words, and it's still translating through. So you're sharing yourself authentically in those spaces, and you're helping to establish and build some of these mindsets, again, without necessarily having a definition of a specific vocabulary word.
Yeah.
Yeah. How does that lead to meaningful living? Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, the work that I do is really meaningful to me. And there's a kid sitting outside my office right now that I met him a year ago, and he was in a little shell. He didn't know anyone on the Penn State campus, super smart. He had actually built an app that was recognized by Tim Cook, Apple's CEO, but he was so shy. He couldn't get it out there. And over the past year, really fallen in love with him. I keep pushing him to like try things and do things and get out of his shell. And the whole app was called Meet and Eat because he built it because he wanted to meet people on campus, and he was so shy he couldn't even use his own app. But he's, watching him, come into the LaunchBox and become part of this family. And he comes to my office and I kind of give him this tough love, like, hey, did you do this today? Hey, well, you got to go do 10 more things today, and giving him, it's incredibly rewarding to see him meet those milestones and get those app downloads and do those things. And also like watching him like make friends in the LaunchBox and like come out of his shell. And so we can see lots of circumstances like that here. So it's super rewarding to be able to see that me pushing him to do things that made him a little bit uncomfortable are translating, and not only just translating to his work life, but also like his overall mental wellness.
Yeah. So you're sharing your wisdom, and again, authentically, and supporting people in establishing their own competency. So like it's passing down and helping to help other people connect more meaningfully to themselves so they can contribute their unique potential with the world around them also.
Totally.
So
Yeah.
what are your fundamentals, Elizabeth?
I think just, making sure that you're every day trying to push yourself to be, not push, maybe the wrong word, but try to be a better version of yourself every day, right? And that's not just, mentally, that's physically and holistically, and I was yesterday doing hill sprints on the treadmill, which are like, why would anybody do that? And I just kept thinking like, something good's going to come out of this. Like I'm learning something. I mean, I know there's something, right? So it's just this whole idea of, I could have said this sucks in my head, but I was like, I'm learning something, right? I'm becoming a stronger person. So I think, making sure that you're, sort of pushing yourself to see that that's what you're capable of, right? And you'll never know if you don't try, right? I think it's definitely worth trying because we get this one life on earth and like we should experience it in the fullest that we can. And I really believe that like if we want to do something, we shouldn't be too scared to do it because we don't feel like we have the resources or that we're not smart enough, strong enough, whatever. I think we can build those skills, and I think we can do that by first tapping into our own physical stamina and strength, and then looking outside of that. Okay, if I could do this, I can probably figure out a way to find the money. I could probably figure out the way to do this. And so leave no stone unturned. If you're really interested in pursuing something, I think like we can figure it out. Like there's a way. And we start by just like tapping into our own self through physical training and just looking at our own mindset.
Yeah. Fake it until you make it. And Nike slogan, just do it. Don't think about it, just do it and see what happens after that. So
Yeah.
you have to army crawl to get into like that next door, then army crawl. It's fine. Like do what you need to do, because if it's meaningful to you, what are you losing by not doing it? Yeah. What is the quote that you would like to share today?
Yes, the quote that I'd like to share, I sort of alluded to it earlier in the podcast, is the way you do anything is the way you do everything. And I think I tell my kids this all the time, especially I'm like in that age where the kids are like writing emails for like job interviews. And I'm like, why would you write an email that looks like that? They're going to, think that you're incapable, so just those things translate into everything. But like I said, I was on the treadmill doing these hill sprints and I'm like, well, if I could totally dog it on these hill sprints, nobody's watching me, or I could quit now. It sucks, but I'm going to do it because I know that like, it's going to teach me something. It's going to teach me to like work harder at something, or it's going to teach me that when somebody's going to come into my office and my heart's going to start pounding because they're doing something, and somehow this is going to translate into something. So I'm just going to do it. So, the way you do anything is the way you're going to do everything. And so I always choose to like, well, I don't always, obviously I definitely dog it sometimes, but I like to think that I would choose most of the time to do things to the fullest and push myself out of my comfort zone so that those things would translate into future successes.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Elizabeth. So thank you for joining us today. That's it for our episode. And yeah, again, I have a time management training for professional moms. If that's a way for you to start thinking about and considering how your time right now and how you view your time. Maybe there's some room for shifts in delegation around the household, or changing up relationships a little bit. Maybe there's a little bit too much social norms happening, and maybe there could be a little bit of experimentation to see if there's opportunities for something else. So go ahead and check that out. That will continue to be available for free on YouTube and Spotify via video. It's a whole presentation, or you can listen to it wherever you get your podcast. So thank you again, Elizabeth, for joining us.
Yes, thank you, Kelly.
Thank you for listening to the Know Your Fundamentals podcast. I hope this episode gave you some valuable tools and helped you feel more connected to yourself and others. Get more life, family, and career fundamentals when you follow Know Your Fundamentals on social media, including Instagram and YouTube. You can also join the Fundamentals Life, Family, and Career Wellness Facebook group. There you'll get access to live trainings, helpful resources, Q&As with our guests, and professional mom community that's here to support you in thriving your way. I'm cheering you on, and I hope to hear from you soon.